Hello everyone and welcome back to part 11 in this How to Draw a Tabby Cat in Coloured Pencil series. I hope that you're all still enjoying it and you're ready to move on to this next part. And like I said in the last video, I am going to draw the paw in this video. So yes, if you've not seen the rest of the parts, I'll link them below along with everything else and we'll get stuck in. I think this tutorial could also be handy to anyone that just wants to learn how to draw a paw and doesn't want to draw the full cat. So if you're here finding this video because you've been looking for a paw tutorial, just draw out the paw and feel free to join in on this part. So the first thing that we're going to do is use dark sepia, and like I do with the eyes, lost my voice then, like I do with the eyes and other parts of the animal, I'm just going to add a bit of a, sort of like a guideline at the bottom of this paw where it's a bit darker and it meets the floor that the cat's paws sat on. I hope that you're all doing well. The weather is like all over the place at the minute here, so I've got my windows open again. So hopefully it's quieter today than sometimes. Saying that, I think somebody's just started mowing the grass just as I've started saying that. I'm just going to go around that claw. I don't know about anyone else, but when I'm drawing I get really hot. I don't know if it's like the concentration that I need or the way that I'm like hunched over. I don't know, I just get really hot. I think it's because of the concentration. I'm just going over just like some of the darker areas so that I don't lose that pencil line. Just drawing in this little shape. A lot of you have been tagging me in your photos again, and honestly I can't believe how good your drawings of this cat are, like honestly. Amazing. Hopefully you've learnt something from it, if anything, and you found it really useful. I feel like my videos are getting a bit more, getting seen a little bit more now, so that's really good. Because obviously I've not been doing this for very long really. It's still like at the very start of my YouTube journey. So it's nice that they're getting seen a bit more. I have zoomed in a bit more for this part of the video. I think I might do that from now on. I think you can just see a little bit more of what I'm doing. And for some reason this camera is just a bit better when you zoom in. So, and I think I've sorted the lighting out. So happy days all round. Right, I think that is enough now. We can see where everything is and I'm ready to put a base colour down. So I am going to start from the left of the paw. Just because I always start from the left, just makes things simple and I won't smudge it, so I'll just use some ivory as a base. Just concentrating it over the left side of the paw. It's been a bit of a weird couple of weeks since I've got back off holiday because I still live with my parents and my dad got while I was in Cornwall, so I've been trying to like stay just in my office and I've not been sleeping here, but then about halfway through that my mum got, so yeah, it's been weird just staying in here, and thankfully they're alright. That's all that matters. Now I'm just going to use some nougat and I'm just going to start adding in some details. So here where the claw is, I'm just some tiny little like hair strokes that I'm just going to add in. I think it needs a sharpen actually, it's a bit blunt. And I'm just gonna do the same on this little bit of darker fur between, would you call them taws? What would you call these? I'm just gonna call them taws. And I'm just gonna bring it down here a little bit as well. Just sort of doing like little fur stroke type motions. And then just going to do some really faint little hairs coming up off the paw. I'm just starting to add some little squiggly fur stroke kind of shapes. It's not super detailed, this paw, because it looks a little bit like it's out of focus, like the focus is on the cat's face. So this is a bit more blurry. So we're not going to like go crazy trying to make it super detailed. Not everything has to be like 100% detailed. You can sort of just create the suggestion with little marks to imitate the fur rather than drawing every single little bit of fur. Like here, I'm just going to do, it's like, I'm going to just dab the pencil a few times, just create some little marks. And I'm just going to do some little strokes going back into that second toe, so it looks like this lighter fur is overlapping. Just gradually building up a bit of shape to it. And then here there's kind of like goes down like that. Just gonna add a few more little squiggly bits of fur with that nougat. And I'm just going to bring a few more little strokes just coming off the top of the paw. And now I think it's time to warm it up, and I'm going to use the colour that we've used all the way through this, and that is the raw umber. Just gonna really lightly start blending that in, just glazing over everything that we've done. I'm concentrating it in like the top part, and I'm leaving this bit a bit lighter. I'm doing a commission at the minute that is just in normal pencils, like sketching pencils or graphite, whatever you want to call it. I'm really enjoying it. I absolutely love drawing in colour, and I wouldn't ever stop doing that. Like, I love it. But it's nice to just do something different for a change. And I think just pencil drawings can be really effective. Like, you don't always need colour, and that's where I started out really with drawing, doing just graphite pencils, pet portraits. I did that before I did the colour anyway, and I used to sell them for like £20 I think when I started. It was before I went to uni, so I was like 16, 17 when I first started selling graphite pencil drawings. Just using some dark sepia again, and I'm just going to darken up those little bits between the toes. It's not even like a clear shape, it's just like a bit of a weird little squiggly line going down. But just try and draw what you see. I'm going to do the same just here. But yeah, let me know if anybody watching this tutorial, if you started out using just pencil, no colour, or if you've just gone straight into colour. I'd be interested to know. Maybe one day I'll just do like a pencil tutorial just for a change. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that aren't quite ready for colour yet, but still want to learn how to draw animals. Just defining this little claw as well. Just making sure I get that shape right. Just going to use some warm grey 1. Just going to, actually warm grey 2. Yes, warm grey 2, and just draw the rest of this claw in. And I'm just going to use a bit of dark sepia underneath it, just to define the shape a bit more. And a bit more coming down that left side of it, like that. I'm just going to add a few more strokes. And I'm going to use a bit more of that warm grey too. And I'm just going to start applying a bit of it at the bottom of the paw. It's like a warm grey colour. Pretty much just colouring it in till I get to about here, and then I'm going to do some more like little stroke lines just to blend it up into the rest. And then the same here. Then I'm going to use the dark sepia again and just start adding in the detail into the bottom. So some little fur strokes on top of that warm grey. And I'm going to start adding some in here as well, just in sort of like crisscrossing directions, and then here it comes out a bit there, and then on top a little bit. So it's like a little lighter hair that you can see. I'm just going to tack those strokes sort of like all the way up between those two toes. Then I'm going to do the same at this side. Just start adding in a few more strokes to add some detail. Sort of like drawing it upwards from the left to the right. When you do that, the thinner bit of the line or the stroke that you've just done is where you've picked the pencil up. So say you drew from here to here, that line will gradually get thinner where you lifted your pencil off, and it looks a bit more natural, and it looks now like this bit of fur is sitting on top of this bit, if that makes any sense. I'm just gonna add a few little strokes coming off that bottom left side of the paw, and a few just coming down just to define that edge a little bit more. And I think we need some more on this left side. Yeah, I'm just going to darken up some of these little bits of hair. A little bit darker, blending into these fur strokes. I think we could still do with a bit more detail on this paw, so just going to start penciling in some little strokes, still with the dark sepia. Then a few going up in this direction. Just really lightly, just enough that it adds a bit more detail. I'm going to add a few more really light ones at the bottom here too. Just like that, and then I think we'll move on to this middle toe. I feel like someone's going to laugh at me and they're not going to be called toes, but we'll just call them that. So just rubbing that line out, and actually I'm going to rub it out a bit more. Just using ivory all over. And just like we did before, I'm going to use nougat and start adding in a little bit of detail. Now here it's not necessarily like an actual fur stroke, it's just I can see some like squiggly weird little shapes that sort of imitate and create the look of fur strokes. So I'm just going to draw those in, literally just exactly what I can see. Not trying to overthink it too much and make it look like fur. It'll all make sense once you've drawn it. Trying to achieve that sort of clumpy look. I'm just drawing some little shapes like that. And I'm going to add some little strokes It's really hard to see what's going on here, but I'm going to just do our best. I think I'm just going to add a bit more nougat to the top of this left toe, just to add a bit more of a brown tone. And a little bit more down the left. I know I do like jump around quite a bit in these tutorials sometimes, but it's not until you start another section that you can like see what needs adding on another bit. And I like to just do it while it's in my mind. So I'm just going to start adding some first strokes, concentrating them to this bottom right part of the paw, of this toe. That sounds so northern when I say toe. I hate my accent. Just going to bring it to about here. And then I'm going to do some more strokes coming like I did before, sort of drawing from the bottom up in that left to right diagonal. Just going to do some strokes coming from between those two toes. Again, just imitating as if the fur, this lighter fur, is sat on top of this bit. I'm just going to darken that up a bit. And I think I'm going to add some of that warm grey too now to the bottom of this. I'm going to add some cold grey there, so just leave that bit for now. But just to the bottom left, I think, of this little toe. I don't know how many times I can say toe in this video. There's a bit of like a warm grey colour here. I'm just gonna sort of glaze that in. And I think a little bit more just here on this left bit. And I'm going to put a bit of cold grey. We'll go for cold grey too. Just here where it's slightly bluey. Like that. And I'm going to add a bit of raw umber as well. So it's mostly over this bit. So I'm just again glazing it over just on top of what we've already done, really lightly, going over and over it quite evenly, not pressing on hard at all really. I'm just adding in a bit of warmth. and a little bit then it does sort of feel like there's a slight like pinky colour. Just going to really lightly sort of blend that out there. I'm going to add a bit of beige red, just really lightly, so there's a bit of a pinky tone here, so I'm just going to glaze that in. And a bit here. And a tiny bit at the top. It's very subtle, but there is a slight bit of pink. And then I'm going to use dark sepia again and start adding in a bit more detail. I have a massive ulcer on my cheek and it hurts every time I talk. I hate ulcers. I always get them at this time of year. The worst part is whenever I get one, I always end up biting it in the same place over and over again, and then it just takes forever to go away. Just going to define this bit a little bit more while I'm looking at it. And a few little strokes. I think I need a bit more nougat there. I've lost it because of that raw umber, so I'm just going to add a bit more in. And a little bit more. I think a little bit more here as well. Needs a bit more brown. And a bit of nougat there, and a little bit more. Just sort of like drawing in whatever little shapes I can see in the fur. And I'm going to carry on adding a bit of dark sepia again. Just sort of doing it in strokes so that it looks like there's some little lighter hairs. I'm doing these like little pointy shapes with the like meat at the end. Kind of like a little triangle-y shape. Just add a bit more here. I think I need a bit of cold grey too, just over this little bit. And a bit more there. Can't really see it that well, to be fair. And I'm going to add a bit of dark sepia just there. Use the nougat again and just sort of blend these first strokes in a little bit. Pressed on a little bit hard. That's looking better. I'm going to blend a few up from the bottom. I think I'm going to try adding, I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try it anyway, a little bit of apricot like we used for the nose area, just to try and add a bit of a peachy colour and tie it together a little bit. The beige red didn't do a lot, so I think this might just be the colour I need. Yes, I think that's looking a bit better. I love this colour. Just gonna like blend it into this section. And a bit at the top. And at this side as well. I think that's better. Yeah, a lot better. Just gonna add a bit more on top of this. Just blending it in. Yeah, I'm happier with that now. And now I'm gonna do this like darker bit where this a really clear claw there. Actually, I think I need to just make this claw a bit clearer by going under it and over it a little bit with the dark sepia, and same here with this one. Yeah, that's better. So I'm going to go around with the dark sepia around this claw a bit more. I'm pretty much going to colour these two like triangular shapes. I'm going to colour them in because they're pretty solid. So about there. Making sure to avoid this claw though, don't colour over that. And then I'm going to use that cold grey 2 again, because it's a bit more bluey. I'm just going to use it as a base. Just on this bottom part. I might just use a bit of cold grey one here actually on top where it's a bit lighter. No, it's not really made a difference, ignore that. And I'm going to start using a bit of cold grey 5. I'm going to start just adding a bit of detail. Just doing some strokes mostly. So I'm doing it from the bottom and upwards, just to round off that shape, and then from the top bringing it down till about there, because it goes a bit like a browny colour there, and then here I'm just going to draw a line there. It looks like it's a claw, but I think it might just be a little bit of fur. And then sort of round this bit off. Like that. And then I'm going to use the dark sepia and start adding some detail here. So I've just done like a little, again like a little triangle shape, and just focusing it from the bottom. And the fur sort of like, it comes down in this direction in a little clump. I mean, this bit is not like, doesn't need to be perfect, there's not a whole lot of detail you can see. I'm just trying to add a little bit in. I mean, the thing is, you want the focus to be on the face, don't you? So it doesn't need to be like the most amazing, detailed bit of drawing. And then that little claw there needs to be bluey tone, so I'm going to use Cold Grey 1 this time. It's a bit paler than this bottom part. Cold Grey 1, and then Warm Grey 2 at the top where it's a bit warmer. And then just bringing it down that left side a little bit. Then I'm going to use Nougat to add a bit of extra shadowing and just really start to create the shape. So I'm mostly just adding it down the left side and then a little bit to the right, and then a bit of dark sepia just on top of that. Just creates a bit more shape to that claw. And I think we're going to start on this toe, the right hand side toe. So once again, I'm going to use that ivory as a base colour. And I'm going to add the apricot first because it's very vibrant in this bit. So I'm just going to lightly start adding that on top, just going over it and over it lightly until it looks a bit smoother. You don't always, not everything has to always go in the order that I show you. I mean, sometimes you need to do it in a certain order because it'll start looking really mucky and dirty and not right, but with colours like this where they're a bit lighter anyway, you can play around with the order that you put them down in. And like here, where I want it to be a bit more vibrant, I'm putting this down first. And then I'll probably just work on top of this. I'm going to use Nougat and start adding some detail. So I'll just add some little fur shapes. I just love that apricot colour, it's such a nice colour. I love the Pablos. I'd really like to buy a full set, but I can't bring myself to do it yet. Maybe it'll be like a Christmas treat to myself. Or I don't know whether to just keep doing what I do now and every time I go on Jackson Art or the coloured pencil shop or wherever, just add a few extra to the basket to try. I don't know which is the better way to do it, but I really like them. But then at the same time, I don't want to make the tutorials like too complicated with loads of different coloured pencils. Would you rather have like really accurate colours or have the tutorials a bit simpler and just keep the colour palette quite, not limited, but without loads of different brands and colours and whatnot? I'd love to hear your thoughts anyway. I might just do it anyway and just have a go practicing with them myself. Because there's some really nice colours. Do you know what my like ultimate business goal or whatever I'd like in the future, I'd love to bring out my own coloured pencils. That would be like the dream. And like bring out loads of really nice shades that you can't get in other colours. I would love to do that. I think about it all the time, like I think about, oh, what would I call the brand, and yeah, it's just something. Got a dream, haven't you? I'm just going to use some dark sepia just here where this like little darker bit is. I'm just going to define that a bit. I wouldn't even know where to begin with bringing out coloured pencils. Like, where do we even look to do that? It'd be good if you could create them in the UK. That would be like the best option. But yeah, that is like a long-term thing I'd like to do, if all goes well. Just adding dark sepia anywhere that I feel needs a bit more definition. And I'm just going to use that cold grey 2 again, just to add, to finish that edge off. And then I'm going to use the dark sepia just to... Do you know what? I know there's like a brownie colour there, but it doesn't matter. We'll just pretend we can't see that and use dark sepia. Sometimes it's like you don't need to add all the colours that you can see. Especially when you're creating a piece of artwork and people are only going to be looking at the end piece of art. They're not going to be putting a reference photo next to it and comparing it. I mean, you can share both if you want to, but I don't like doing that. I've been asked a few times, like on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, to share the reference and the artwork, but it just puts me on edge because I'm like, people start looking at it and comparing like what the difference is, and there's always going to be a big difference. If it was meant to be exactly the same, you'd just print out the photo rather than drawing it. So I'm just going to use a bit of raw umber, just add a bit of that to the top of this tufty bit. And a little bit more to the left. And now I think we can start. Oh, do you know what? I'm going to use a bit more cold grey 5, just let's blend that a bit together. And while I'm looking at it, I'm just going to darken up this bottom part of the paw just so that it sort of like matches the rest of it. Right, now I'm going to move on to the next bit and use ivory. Yeah, I'm going to use ivory as a base. Just all over that front leg. Just got a bit smudgy there. And just going all over this. I'm going to bring it up to meet that left section. Just to about there, I won't go too far. You know me, I like to work in like the tiniest little sections. And I'm going to use nougat. It's not as orangey now, it's back to like the colours we've been using this whole time. So I'm just going to use nougat, and here where this like little marking is, just going to start adding some detail. Again, it's not like clear first strokes, it's more like a weird like squiggly line. So I'm just going to try and mimic that. And I'm just going to like really softly blend the colour. Just to try and create like a soft, fluffy fur sort of look. Just doing really light strokes. Again, it's quite unclear what the fur's doing, so I'm just going to make it look a bit ambiguous, like you can't really see exactly. It's very faint. And then I'm going to start blending some first strokes. Just down here. Just following the direction of the fur. It sort of like comes down here. Then I'm just going to add this second marking in, still with the nougat, and then I will go in with the dark sepia after this, I think. Can you hear the geese? They're so loud. They always fly over at like the same time every day. There's like hundreds of them here, like so many. And they all sit in the road so you can't get your car through and you have to wait ages for them to move out the way. It's funny. It's so cute in the spring when they've all got babies. Right, I'm going to add a bit of dark sepia now. I'm just going to define that marking a little bit. Add a little bit to the left of the paw there, and just again define the second marking. Just leaving a few little gaps for some lighter hairs that are poking up. I'm just drawing around this little, is that the whisker? No, I'll just colour over that bit. And I'm going to start bringing that dark sepia just down that right hand side. I think there's some clanging. I'm going to go and move that. Just going to carry on adding in the little strokes to the side here. And then just going to actually add a few bits to this little side of the toe. Actually, too dark. I think I need more nougat there instead. That's better. Let's add a bit of the nougat just to darken it up. Yeah, that's a lot better. I'm just going to start adding a few more strokes, but pressing on a tiny little bit harder so that it's a bit more detailed this time. I'm just going to darken up the edges of this marking. Sort of blending it out a bit. I think definitely a bit more between them. I think I'm going to add a little bit of dark sepia. Just some really small first strokes. Just focusing to the right hand side of that paw. And then I'm going to do a few sort of like coming from this marking. Just really subtly. Just going to darken it up even more. Just gradually building it up. Just add a few little strokes. Just going to darken this bottom part up a little bit as well. Okay, don't want it to be too detailed because, like I said before, don't want to take any attention away from the face. So I think I'll just extend the paw up a little bit more and just carry on the same process of adding nougat and dark sepia. Just to about there because there is a slightly different colour here. So I've not taken it too far up, and again just going to use nougat to start building up some fur texture. Just following the direction of the fur as always. Then here where the paw kind of like meets the body, I'm just going to draw between these little lighter hairs, kind of like a triangle shape again, I guess, just to try and blend those hairs and make it look like they're actually coming off the paw and sitting on top of the body. Just drawing some little shapes to try and imitate that, and I'm just going to use the dark sepia just to define them. Just like those little pointy shapes. That just make it look like there's some little hairs and they're on top of this section. I'm just going to carry on with that nougat now, just adding in some more fur detail. I've really enjoyed drawing this paw. And I'm just going to start adding this little marking in. And then there's like a marking just here as well, a bigger one. So I'm just going to add some nougat and sort of draw around some lighter hairs with those little pointy little shapes again. Do you see how they just sort of like make it look like you've put loads of detail in but without trying too hard? Because you can see the lighter hairs. It's just a really easy way of getting a natural looking detailed fur. There is like another little mark in here, like a really tiny one. So I'll go over that with the dark sepia in a second. Yeah, now I'm going to just add the dark sepia. I feel like there's actually another mark in here that I've not even noticed. So I'm just going to extend this one out a bit further. And there's another one here, I want to say. It's like a teeny tiny. So I'm only going to add a few little strokes of the dark sepia. Like literally that'll do. And just a few here. And then just sort of blend that together a bit more. And darken this bit up. Just add in a few more bits there. And I'm just doing those little pointy shapes to create those lighter hairs. And now I think all I'm going to do is just use a bit more nougat, maybe a bit of raw umber, just to further create a bit more detail. Definitely some more between these markings. I think just a little bit more. And I'm just going to add a bit more, just to blend like this sort of section together. And I think that'll pretty much, I'm just going to blend a bit more upwards there. That'll pretty much do for this video. Let's add a bit of dark. I always say, oh, that'll do, and then I'm like, no, needs more, because I'm just a perfectionist. Just adding a bit of dark sepia. Just a little bit, just a few strokes. Don't even know if that's made it better. But anyway, that'll do. You could go on forever and ever, couldn't you? But for this part, I think that is a good amount of drawing that we've done. So thank you very much for watching this part, and please give it a like if you've enjoyed it as always, and subscribe if you want to see more tutorials and video content on anything to do with coloured pencils. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!